בוקר טוב, בוקר בוקר, you heard that? That was very aggressive. בוקר טוב, we get started with שחרית. It is nice to see the faces of those emerging on Zoom, those of course that are here in person. Shacharit Shel Shabbat will start on page 186 in Mishkan Tefillah.
מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה.
רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך. Therefore, thanks to you, ever-living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. And we're speaking just a few minutes ago in Torah study about this idea of that we don't have the ability to be always on top of the law, the exact behavior that is expected from us. But what we do have is every morning God's trust renewed for us to live up, become the best versions of ourselves. We made a mistake yesterday. We have the opportunity to change our behavior, our attitude today. As we enter this this space that we create together, we turn our sirin to page 192. Atubu alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. So beautiful are your tents, Jacob, even more beautiful, home that we build together. Atubu alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. Atovu alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. ואני את תפילתי לך, אדוני, את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך. On page 194, for the blessing, for the well-functioning of our bodies, I invite you to follow along the words in the Siddur quietly, or alternatively, to take a moment to think about your well-being, your body, maybe some specific part of your body that needs some loving attention. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, vekol basar mafli la'asot.
אמן.
page 196, the blessing for our souls.
אלוהי, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורי, אלוהי, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורי,
אתה בראת, אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי, ואתה משמרה בקרבי, ואתה עתיד לתבע ממני ולחסירה לעתיד לבוא. כל הזמן שהנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך. כל הזמן שהנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך. אדוני, אלוהי ואלוהי אבותיי, אדוני, אלוהי ואלוהי אבותיי, ריבון כל המעשים, אדון כל הנשמות, ריבון כל המעשים, אדון כל הנשמות. אלוהי, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורי, אלוהי, נשמה שנתת בי, Source of all creation, sovereign of all souls, praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch ata Adonai, asher beyado nefesh kol chai, ruach kol basar ish.
Amen.
We now turn our Sidurim to page 198 for Birkot HaShachar, and as we call them alternatively, Nisim Bechol Yom, blessings for the daily miracles. We think of the many gifts we have in our lives, the given things that we have in our lives. As we were discussing yesterday, those things that are dayenu, that are enough for us in order to move forward, move toward our days, our routines, to live creative lives. Page 198.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who have created all human beings equal.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam who crowns Israel with splendor.
Amen.
Page 204, the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לעסוק בדברי תורה. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל.
Amen. We continue in English, bottom of page 206. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's parents, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We're on page 212 for the blessing for the Psuke de Simbra.
Baruch Shema v'haya olam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Oseh Bereshit, Baruch Omer Ve'oseh, Baruch Koseh Umekayem, Baruch Merachem al haaretz, Baruch Merachem al habriot, Baruch Meshalem טוב לרעיו, ברוך האלוהים וקיים לנצח, ברוך פועל ומציל, ברוך הוא, ברוך שמו,
With songs of praise, we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praise and glorious ruler, your name is eternal.
מלך מעולם בתשבחות, מלך מעולם בתשבחות,
ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מעולם בתשבחות. We'll now start the Psukei de Simbra of Shabbat on page 214 with Psalm 92, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat.
מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת, מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת, מזמור, מזמור שיר, שיר ליום ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
Page 215. Happy are those who dwell in your house.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך, עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך, עוד יהללוך סלה. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך, עוד יהללוך סלה.
תהילת לדוד, רוממך אלוהי המלך, והברכה שמך לעולם בעד.
בכל יום אברכך, בלילה שמך לעולם ועד.
אדון אדוני, ומהולל מאוד, בגדולתו אין חקר.
תולדו ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבודותיך, בדברי נפלותיך אשיכם.
וזוז נורותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
זכר רטובך יביאו, בצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, בגבולתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור בדור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך ישברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון אליו יעשה, בית שבתה משמה ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל שעים ישמיע.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו, לעולם בעד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה.
And on page 218, for Psalm 150.
הללויה, אל בקודשו, הללויה, בקיע עוזו, הללויה, בגבורותיו, הללויה, קרוב כולו, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללויה, הללויה, בתקע שופר, הללויה, בנבל וחידון, הללויה, הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה, הללו, בצלצלי שמה, הללו, בצלצלי תרועה,
הללו,
בצלצלי שמה, הללו, בצלצלי תרועה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, הללו, הללויה.
נשמת כל חי. God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. The night neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone we acknowledge. From page 220.
Ilufinu male shira kayam ol shonenu rina beyadenu frusot knishre shamayim beraglenu kalot kayalot ilufinu male shira kayam ol shonenu rina beyadenu frusot knishre shamayim beraglenu kalot kayalot לשוננו רינה, בידינו פרוסות, כנשרי שמיים, ערלינו קלות כהיילות. אל בית עצמות עושיך, הגדול בכבוד שמך, הגיבור לנצח, והנורא בנורותיך. God, in the power of your strength, great in the glory of your name, mighty forever, awesome in amazing deeds. The ruler who sits on a high, exalted throne. We're on page 222. שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נאווה תהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ומקלות רבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, תושבחה לב וזמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח תודה וגבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודות, מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים.
I want to invite us to transition into the Shema section with a different prayer, a different poem than the one we usually do, which is Chetzi Kaddish. I'd like to invite you to turn your Sidurim to page 145. We yesterday sang this poem written by Leah Goldberg, and we brought it in the context of songs of freedom. But I find it particularly interesting also in the context of spring, of witnessing the renewal that comes with the spring season and praying for the ability to live up to that ability, to that invitation to experience renewal ourselves. The song is very simple. למדני אלוהי ברך והתפלל, על סודה לקמל, על נוגה פרי ושל, על החירות הסוד לחיות, לחוש לנשום, לדעת לייחל, להיכשל. למדני אלוהי ברך והתפלל, על סודה לקמל, על נוגה פרי ושל, לחירות הסוד לראות, לחוש לנשום, לדעת לייחל, להיכשל. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש מלכי בוקר בהמלל, לבל יהיה יומי היום כתמול שלשום. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש זמנך בוקר והמלל, לבל יהיה יומי היום הרגל. Start from the beginning. למדני אלוהי ברך והתפלל, על סודה לקמל, על נוגה פרי ושל, על החירות הסוד לראות, לחוש לנשום, לדעת לייחל, להיכשל. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש זמנך בוקר והמלל, לבל יהיה יומי היום כתמול שלשום. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש זמנך בוקר והמלל, לבל יהיה יומי עליי יומי הרגל. Please rise, we're on page 226.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך,
אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. In mercy you illuminate the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom you form them all, filling the earth with your creatures. We praise Adonai our God for the excellent work of your hands and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, שר המערות.
Amen.
ברבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ותרחמת עלינו. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. תאר עינינו תורתך, דבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה שמך. Lighten our eyes with your Torah, focus our minds with your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Then we will never feel shame, never deserve rebuke, never stumble. Gather us peace from the four corners of the earth and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us truly. You drew us near to your great name that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch atah Adonai, הבוחר בעמו ישראל, באהבה.
Amen.
232.
Shema
Israel, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad.
We continue on page 234. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue in the middle of page 236 in English. Adonai said to Moses as follows: Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אלוהיכם אמת. אמת ויציב בהוף וחביב ונורא, ודיר בטוב ויפה. הדבר עשה עלינו לעולם בהדם. With a silent rain over page 238. Children witness your presence. They praise your name in gratitude, lifting up their voices, singing, Who is like you, O God, mi chamocha, ba'elim Adonai. We're on page 240. Yai, rai, rai, ya, rai, rai, rai. Yai, rai, rai, ra, ra, la, ra, lai. Yai, rai, rai, ra, ra, lai, lai, lai. Yai, rai, 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 ra, 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 lai. Yai, rai, ya, ra, 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 lai. Yai, rai, 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 rai. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot osef shira chadasha shibchu geulim leshimcha al tzfat hayam ya'achad kulam hodu והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ישראל קומה בשרת ישראל ובני נומך יהודה וישראל. Rock of Israel, rise in support of Israel. Redeem Judah and Israel as you promised. Our Redeemer Adonai Tzebaot is your name. Blessed are you Adonai for redeeming Israel. Baruch Ata Adonai Poel Israel. We're on page 242 for Tfilat Amidah. I invite you to rise your spirit, your legs, whatever you are able to. During this time, we try to find the energy, the words, the intentions, the kavanot. Help us deeply connect our spirits. Help us reconnect with vision, what's important to us, of what we want to have hold our hearts. We're to follow along the words of our Siddur, and also find your Tfilah Shevalev, the prayer of your heart, page 242.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fiyah ki tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gamel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zochei Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומציל אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, איש עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבולות, ומדרום אליך, מלך מימית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. מלמנת על החיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. Page 248.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, אלוהים כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, אדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, נמלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, ודור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Yes, ויורז את הבוא, כזש לכם דד ימים אותו קלטה, זה כלמעשה בראשית. ואבותינו ואמותינו, וצווינו קדשנו מצוותיך ותחלקנו בתורתך. צווינו בטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, ותר לבנו לעבדך באמת. אלוהינו ועמך ישראל, ותפילתם בבת תקרב ביתי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך. עם שלום טובה וברכה. Shalom, tova uvracha, chem bechesed, rachamim, and peace, goodness, blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to us and to all your people Israel. Bless us, our Creator, all of us together through the light of your presence. At the bottom of page 216, the blessing for peace that concludes Tfilat Amidah.
Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה לה לה, יאללה לה יאללה לה לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה יאללה לה, יאללה לה יאללה לה לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו, אמרו, אמן. ואמרו, אמרו,
We will now turn our Siurim to page 362 in order to start our Torah service. I invite you to please rise as we open the ark.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עושה ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו. גדול אדוני איתי, ונרוממה שמו יחדיו.
מזמור לדוד, אבו לאדוני ונהלים, אבו לאדוני כבוד בעוז, אבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש. לא לאדוני האלמנים, אלא כבוד גילים, אדוני, אדוני, על מים רבים. כל אדוני בכוח, כל וישבר אדוני את ארצי הלבנון, ויקידם כמו עגל לבנון וציון, כמו כל אדוני חוצב לעודש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכול הילוד, ויחשוף יערות, ובהיכלו כולו מרכבות, ובהיכלו כולו מרכבות. אדוני למבול ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני יוס לעמיו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. I was thinking while we were singing this melody for Psalm 29 that if you ate legumes during Passover, you better sing this melody. Sephardic melody. So it's a nuance, right? It's a Moroccan melody, it's a Sephardic melody. And Ashkenazim originally don't eat legumes during Passover. However, it is very common to say today that all Jews are Jews by choice today. I think that you can also be Sephardic by choice, right? If you are a Jew by choice, and we are all Jews by choice, or maybe Sephardic. I have some return here that shouldn't be. Maybe we need to change the microphone. The river is too high. They help me if I speak for more than 3 minutes. It will be terrible, Eden. Thank you. So we can make the choice to be a Sephardic Jews, some of us. Where did I put those papers? Here they are. So, you're lucky. I was saying, these are little nuances in the Jewish world, but for example, the identity of the household in terms of Sephardic or Ashkenazi is defined by which side. If an Ashkenazi woman gets married with an Ashkenazi man, what? Then they're Ashkenazi? No. Sorry. Sephardic woman with Ashkenazi men. What? So in this case, Ash Sephardi. So in this case, you go by the man, right? For children, you go by the woman. For kashrut, for Passover, you go by the man. But you can also say, and of course, there are diverse families in which this question becomes a bit more complicated, right? If there are 2 women, 2 men. But that's a very, very original question. Now, it's interesting the nuances in the Jewish world that sometimes we are not aware of. For example, there is a concept between girls in the yeshiva, not yeshiva word, in the, give me the word, I'm missing the Hebrew word for ulpana. For ulpana, where girls study Torah, etc. There's a concept which I don't know if you have heard of, the idea of getting married with a Dutch Jew, an Hollandi. And why is such a good, an important deal to get married with someone from Holland? With a man from Holland? Any idea? It's a thing, I'm not inventing this for this conversation. I could, but I'm not. So here's the deal. The halacha in Holland, which the community in Holland comes from the Portuguese community that comes from the expulsion from Jews in Spain. The halacha, the Jewish law in Holland, is that between meat and milk, you let pass something that is, I think, is 76 minutes. And therefore, if you get married with someone who is from Holland, then you need to you just need to wait 76 minutes for dessert, from a dairy dessert. And it's a thing, right? So there are all kind of interesting nuances in the Jewish world. Now, talking about nuances, have you heard about the two goats that we are going to read about in this Torah portion? Lazazel. Good. Any idea what are these two goats about? We're going to read about two goats. And I want to give you some context about what's happening. TBT follows the calendar of the URJ. We still do Iskor in the second day, but we are already reading the Torah portion of the next week that the URJ divides in two. So it's complicated. But so we are synchronized with the rest of the Jewish world in the United States, with the Orthodox communities and so with the conservative communities. So in Israel, this week they are reading Acharei Mot, next week Kedoshim. In the United States, Reformed Jews, we are reading Acharei Mot 1, and next week Acharei Mot 2. Complicated. Your dad used to make an interesting, and I think I have the PowerPoint, I need to look for it, a very interesting talk about the Jewish calendar. He was fascinated by that at some point of his rabbinical. Yes, he was. And he asked me, like, can I teach? And I was like, you do it. Yes. I was very happy to let him take for me because it's really, really complicated. I think you love the topic too, Henry, right? No? It wasn't a topic of yours too? Oh. Anyway, Rabbi Art, for sure. And I do think I have the PowerPoint. I think at some point he sent it to me. Well, I have lots of materials that man prepared. So you should know. So, anyway, nice to bring the memory of your dad, your husband, and our beloved friend and Rabbi Art. Anyway, let's get back to Parashat Acharei Mot, and after reading Torah, we will dedicate a couple of minutes to do Iskor. That's what I wanted to contextualize. Now, and we're going to make a shorter conversation today because we'll talk a little bit about Iskor in a few more minutes, so we want to give time to both things. So in this Torah portion, we are going to read at some point about two goats. Have you heard about those two goats? No. Now I will tell you, yes, you have. Because you hear that, of course, every single year for Parashat Acharei Mot, but also you hear that every year in Yom Kippur. Because in this Torah portion, we are introduced to some of the customs, some of the laws also related to Yom Kippur. Now, basically, we are talking about two goats. One that is going to be offered as a sacrifice, and the other one that will be what? The other one will be freed. Now, is really that goat going to be freed? No, really, he's going to die. He's going to totally die. Why? Well, he's being thrown. One of the possibilities that it's going to be thrown off the cliff, just a like brutal killing for the goat, or it's going to be sent into the wilderness. If you're a goat, you probably cannot survive alone in the wilderness. So any of the two options is a bad future, a bad fate for the goat. Now, the Torah says that two goats that are pretty much equal are brought together, and then lots were drawn. So they basically will take two little papers. One will say, offering, that's the good fate. You get killed immediately, and you are elevated as a sacrifice. It's an offer to God. That one goes to God. Now the question is about the other one. The other one goes where? Mitch, you said that? What? Lazazel. It goes Lazazel. What does it mean to go Lazazel in Hebrew? In modern Hebrew? It's something like go to hell, right? Okay, so not such a good fate for that goat. Now, the word Azazel, where does it come from? Yes. Thank you, Nitza. Now, do you have any input regarding where this word comes from? Okay, so I'll take it. Now, so there are several possible origins to this word. It has no root in Hebrew. It's tricky, I know. So one, it could be that it refers to the devil, and there are some midrashim that speak about that. Another possibility is that comes from the word as goat, that is somehow related to that. But the reality is that the rabbis don't fully comprehend. Now, the big question is, this is by the time of Yom Kippur. This happens in the day of Yom Kippur. The Torah is introducing us to the 10th day of the month. The Torah doesn't say the month of Tishrei. The name comes later in this context. It says on the 10th day of the 7th month, that is Tishrei. The first month of the year is technically Nisan. We are in that month right now. And the Torah says in the 10th day of the month of Tishrei, you're supposed to bring these two seemingly equal goats, and you are supposed to draw their lots. One is going to be offered as a sacrifice, and the other one is going to be sent as a sale. Now, why do we need two? Now, sacrificial offerings is something we know. Now, why do we need two? Why we need one to be offered as a sacrifice, and the other one to be sent, as I said, and by the way, this is the origin of the concept scapegoat. The scapegoat concept, Sir Lazazel in Hebrew, and scapegoat concept that I think comes from some time from a Bible translation in the 1500s. Check it later, quite sure. But I don't fully remember who was the one who translated and coined the concept. But we do have that information, I just don't remember it. So the question is, why do we need a scapegoat on top of the offering? I'm truly asking to you. Any idea? And Aiden, if you have microphones for people to start venturing, and Zoomers, we invite you also to share, and just be mindful that if we are speaking with you, we need you to be receptive of that. Any idea? Mitch Golver, Aiden, help him.
The scapegoat was to be used to take the sins of the people and remove them so that the people would have expiation vis-a-vis by sending the sins out in the wilderness, God willing, not to return.
Yeah, fair. Now, you're mentioning two different things, actually. You're mentioning two different things, and I want to stop on them for 1 second. No.
That's what debate is all about.
No, he's right address, wrong phone number, but we're almost there. So two different things. One is expiation. That goat doesn't do that work. Right? What's the meaning of the word atonement? The meaning of you need to open your microphone. So Gabriel is saying, what's the meaning of the word expiation? So I want to translate that, and let's go all the way from Pesach to Yom Kippur and ask what's the meaning of the word atonement. And we say every year, Yom Kippurim atones for what? Yes, but in which context? Friends, this is an important preparation for Yom Kippur. I understand that we have a gap here to fill. We're going to do it right now. Expiation. Yes, what's the meaning of expiation? And I took you to atonement. What does Yom Kippur atone for? Do it all together, one by one, and with the microphone. Otherwise, the Zoomers cannot hear you. For sins.
Sin.
Which kind of sins?
Sins against God.
You are there? No. That's the only kind of sin that Yom Kippur cannot atone for. That's perfect. Thank you for... You cannot clean up your mess with fellow human beings
Right.
in Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur atones for
Sins to
Chata'in,
ourselves.
for sins that were committed between men
And
or
God.
women and God.
Okay.
Nothing else. All what has to do with your personal relationships is your business. You got to fix that. You cannot speak to God and hope for Felix to forgive you. Doesn't work that way. You need to go and talk to Lisa. You need to invite Miriam for a conversation. Like, it doesn't work that way. You don't fix those kind of problems when you come to synagogue. You can fix them in the Kiddush, not in Yom Kippur, but you cannot fix those problems, challenges, problems between Ben Adam lechavero, between fellow human beings, with the offering goat. The offering goat is for atonement. Gabriel, you sing in Kol Nidre. Do you remember? And it's how it goes.
Great question. I'm
Okay,
not
so
ready
we're going to
yet.
work on that 1 second. There are two things that are supposed to happen by Yom HaSeh in this day, in Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
You are supposed to atone, yechaper alechem, atone for your sins with God. Yes, but it has nothing to do with what we are talking about. But yes, do damage. Yes, you are supposed to do that. And you know what? No, it has to do with what we are talking about. In a deeper level, in a deeper, and let me take that. So 2 words, once again. One is yechaper, and the other word in Hebrew is yetaer. Yetoru, says the verse, and we sing in Yom Kippur. Why? The fact that you are atoning, that you are recognizing, that you are confessing your sins is good, but not enough. Because we have souls, we have emotions that we carry, and the atonement that we try to perform or aspire to perform in Yom Kippur is not enough for us to experience renewal and to come once again and reconnect with our lives. We were having this conversation exactly in Torah study this morning. You need to somehow refresh your account in order to be able to keep acting in the world. And even if you have atoned or you have fixed your misdeeds, your wrongdoings with God, there are things that we still carry in our hearts. And what the tradition is trying to offer is a model to also clean up our souls. Now you can say, well, it's a bit barbaric, right? I want to remind you that we do way more terrible things in our world. Now take a look at what's happening in Europe, right? And let's talk about sacrifices. So we are talking about sacrificing a symbolic goat, the one that we send Lazazel, and it's very similar to what we do in Tashlich. We recognize what's dirty, what's that thing that we can't carry with us anymore, and we cast it away. לשלוח את הסיר לעזאזל, את a scapegoat, to send it out, is similar to the action of tashlich. Now, what's this idea about? ultimately, this idea is about being honest with ourselves. It's about the ability to have a real conversation with our souls and to say, this is what I need to organize. Very nice sound. This is what I need to organize. These are the arrays I need to make in order to put my act together. But that doesn't clean my soul. I still feel dirty. I still feel that I'm carrying something that I can't carry. And the reason we need to get rid of those things at some point is because we want to renew our commitment to life. We want to try once again and hopefully do better. But in order to try once again, we need to give ourselves that space. Says Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, atonement is for acts. Atonement is for acts. And then he says, purification is for persons. And it says for your soul. Technical fixing, atonement. Spiritual fixing, purification. They're not the same. We tend to put them together, but they are not the same. They require different kind of work. Sins leave stains on the character of those who commit them, and these need to be cleansed before we can undergo catharsis and begin anew. Monotheism, says Sachs, relocates conflict from out there to in here, transferring it from an objective fact about the world to an internal contest within the mind. Now, the scapegoat in Jewish tradition is the exact opposite of what we refer to in English. Now, we say that the scapegoat is a way for us to get rid of what we are carrying, to put it in someone else, to transfer responsibility. But the idea of the scapegoat, of the Sir Azazel in Jewish tradition, is to first own how we feel about how we have acted. And once you own it, once you recognize it, then you say, now I can let you go. But first you own it. You're not saying it belongs to someone else. The scapegoat is the ceremony of owning, of saying it's mine, this is me. I did this. There's a beautiful story about the Berdichev rabbi I want to conclude with.
So then to answer,
Well, that's between fellow human beings. That's very important, but that's not a completely different story, right? And saying, I was laughing with Mitch earlier. At the end of the day, this applies also to our relationships. But when we are the focus of Yom Kippur and these ideas in the Torah is you. It's you and your life. It's about how you live your life. And of course, your life is filled with interactions with fellow human beings. But it starts by you. The central topic of Yom Kippur is you. Now, you want to say something?
yeah, I was going to say, then to answer Gabriel's question, expiation then would be both the ownership and the removal of the process of what you're carrying.
Well, you could bring them together, but it depends how you use the word expiation, right? Because the Hebrew that we are working with is yechaper ve'etoru. These are the two words. So the expiation word goes with yechaper, with atonement. So the tradition will contextualize that in the offering and not in the scapegoat. It will be connected to the actions that we can acknowledge, recognize, acknowledge, and somehow atone for them, ask for expiation for them. It's more like the legal procedure. But there is a spiritual one that is next to that legal procedure, and that's the scapegoat. Now, I want to mention two things. As Satan in Hebrew, there's a Midrash Teilim. I'm not going to go into the entire Midrash. If you want to look for it later, it's Midrash Teilim 27:3. I think I have it here, so I can look it later. But 27:3, it explains that as Satan, the numerical value of Satan is 364. The devil, the numerical value of the devil is 364, which is one less than a year. And which one is that one that is Yom Kippur? And so this says the Midrash that in that year, in that day, the devil is allowed to go out. And God says, go and look. And then Satan, the devil, comes and see all of us dressed up like angels and davening and not eating. And so the devil says, I can't do anything to these people. And so God takes him or her back. And I want that's a very nice midrash, and to reemphasize the importance of the work that we do in Yom Kippur in terms of trying to get rid not of the Satan, but of the Yetzer Hara, of our evil inclination. And one more thing, a beautiful story about the Berditchev rabbi. This is from the book of Martin Buber about the Hasidic masters. Every night, the rabbi of Berditchev examined in his heart what he had done that day and repented of every fault he found. He said, Levi Yitzchak will not do it again, speaking to himself in third person, right? And then he rebuked himself. Levi Yitzchak said exactly the same thing yesterday. And he added, yesterday, Levi Yitzchak did not tell the truth. But today, he does tell it. He used to comment like a woman who suffers excruciating pain in childbirth and swears never to lie with her husband again, yet forgets her oath. So every Yom Kippurim, we confess our faults and promise to correct ourselves, and yet we continue to sin, and you keep forgiving us. Shabbat Shalom. Let's get started.
Parsha Aharit Mot is found in Leviticus 16:1. In the blue book would be page 863, first line. Yam Tu, Herschel ben Avraham HaKohen. We welcome back our Kohen, Henry Cohen. And reading will be Rabbi Miriam Van Ralt.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai mevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher b'chabonu michal ha'amim v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe acharei Mot shnei bnei Aharon v'koratam lifnei Adonai v'yamutu. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe daber al Haron achicha vel yavo b'chol et el hakodesh מבית לפרוכת על פני הכפורת אשר על הרון. ולא ימות כענן אל הכפורת. וזאת יבוא אהרון אל הקודש בפר בן בקר לחטאת בעיל לעולם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koach. Yam Tu, Malka Bat Jorge, Elia Shani, Milat Serlin, and reading will be Nitza Hennig. And we're continuing on page 863, second column, third line.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai mevarach le'olam va'ed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
כתונת בד קודש ילבש ומכנסי בד על בשרו ובאבנת בד יחגור ובמצנפת בד יצנור. בגדי קודש הם ורחץ במים את בשרו ולבשם. ומאת עדת בני ישראל ייקח 2 שעירי עזים לחטות ועיל אחד לעולה. והקריב אהרון את פר החטות אשר לו וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Continuing on page 864. Yam Tu, Moshe Yeremichael ben Abraham, Feifel ben Shlomo, Ashlishi, Aliyah Ashlishi, Felix Livitz, and Mitch Goldberg. And reading will be Rabbi Niko Sokolovsky.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai mevarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. ולקח את שני האסירים והעמיד אותם לפני אדוני בפתח אוהל מועד ונתן הרום על 2 אסירים גורל אחד לאדוני וגורל אחד לעשהאל והקריב הרום את האסיר אשר עלה אליו גורל לאדוני ועשהו חטאת והאסיר אשר עלה אליו הגורל לעשהאל ימיד חי לפני אדוני לכפר עליו ולשלוח אותו לעשהאל המדברם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
All right. Yam Tu, Seidel Rivka bat Shmuel v'Leah, Gabriel ben Itzhak, Lila Hamaftir, Lila Pesner, and Gabriel Urshan. And reading will be Cantorial Fellow Gabriel Newman. And it's found the last word. It begins with the last word on page
So happy.
866.
I was thinking about you today when I was on my way here.
Baruch et Adonai. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Vo'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. ויצא לחוקת עולם בחודש השביעי בעשור לחודש תתנו את נפשותיכם וכל מלאכה לא תעשו האזרח והגר הגר בתוככם כי ביום הזה יכפר לכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני. תתארו שבתון היא לכם ועיניתם את נפשותיכם חוקת עולם וכפר הכהן אשר ימשך אותו ואשר ימנע את ידו לכהן תחת אביו ולבש את בגדי הבד בגדי הקודש וכיפר את מקדש הקודש ואת אוהל מועד ואת המזבח יכפר ועל הכהנים ועל כל יכפר והייתה זאת לכם לחוקת עולם לכפר על בני ישראל מכל חטאתם אחת בשנה ויעש כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה.
אמן. מי שברך אבותינו ואמותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב שרה רבקה רחל ולאה הוא יברך את כל העולים והעולות לתורה. May the one who bless our ancestors will bless all those that came up to the Torah in honor of God, Shabbat, our Torah, and of course our beloved community. May the blessed Holy One bless all of you with its blessing of protection, rescue from any trouble or distress. May God bless all of you with the energy to undertake all the tasks that you have in your life, and may you find atzlacha, success in all your endeavors. Together with all Israel, and let us say,
Amen.
we also take a moment to acknowledge those in our community that are dealing with illness. We think of those dealing with illness in their bodies, in their souls. We think of those dealing with addictions. And today, because we are saying his core, we'll make a distinction later. But we also acknowledge those that are carrying grief. Grief is not an illness, but sometimes can feel like an illness. And if one is not watching, it could become an illness. So we pray also for the well-being, the hearts of our mourners and those that are carrying grief. We're on page 371 for Mi Sheberach.
Mi Sheberach Avoteinu Mekor Abracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor Habracha Lavotenu. The stars in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Wish to all of you, to all of us, רפואה שלמה והחלמה מהירה, a complete and speedy recovery, and let us say
Amen.
Please rise for Agva and Lelila.
זאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
חיים אל המחזיקים בה בתומכי המאושר. This is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it. It's also a source of joy. We say, return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days, as of in days of old. You may be seated. We will transition now into this core service. So, in order to make this shift and to dedicate the last couple of minutes of our service to memory, I invite you to start thinking about what's eternal in our world. And our tradition teaches us that the lifetime of our bodies is limited on time. And on the other hand, our souls, they don't have a lifetime. They're alive. They're eternal. As we enter this space of His core, we have to connect with that, with the eternity of the souls of those that we love so much.
והגוף הלך חוסה חוסה על המלאך.
We'll take a minute. I want to introduce, we'll say a little bar Torah. I want to announce in advance what we're going to do. We will dedicate a few moments for a few words I want to share with you. And then we will take a moment for a music meditation and go into the words of his core. Each of us will do it separately as it is tradition. And from there, we'll come together to conclude our service. Now, there's a concept in our tradition called Olam Haba, the world to come. There are different opinions regarding what's the meaning of that world, what's the reality of that world to come. I want to share with you one of the possibilities. We 4 times a year come to do Iskor. We do Iskor in Yom Kippur, we just spoke about Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. So there are 4 opportunities every year to do Iskor. Now, what's the purpose of Iskor? Why do we do Iskor? Now, what's the purpose of memory in Jewish tradition? To keep alive. So memory is a mitzvah in our tradition. It's not only a mitzvah. Fulfilling a mitzvah in our tradition is a privilege, an honor. So when we come 4 times a year to fulfill the mitzvah of Liskor, of remembering, it's not a gift that we are giving to our beloved ones. We'll talk about that part in a moment. It's a gift that we are giving to ourselves. Now, I want to give some context to this. Imagine, I shared something similar to this story a couple of years ago. I think it's important to go back to that place. Imagine that you see a castle, huge castle that you know that has some beautiful treasures. But once you approach the castle, there is an entryway to that castle. And once you see that entryway, you just can't get through. You get to the access, you get to the door of the castle, and you just can't get through. Now, what's that thing that prevents you from getting through? Well, apparently there is something very scary about entering that castle. Let's imagine that in the door of that castle, there's a mirror. And every time you face that door, you see yourself. But you don't see your whole self. You see that you are missing a part. You see a terrifying image of yourself. And then, instead of entering, getting through it, and exploring that castle, you turn around. Now, what's the first word we say in Kaddish? It gadal. And Rabbi Arthur Green explains one of the reasons we say It Gadal is because the word It Gadal refers to the word Gadol. And we start the Kaddish by saying we hope for the world to become Gadol, bigger once again, because when we lose a loved one, our perception of God and our perception of the world, our world becomes smaller, becomes reduced. It's like we are missing a part in our perception, in our hearts. We're missing something. Now, every time that we try to make it through that castle, we see that image of the world, of ourselves, that has been terribly reduced, and it's terrifying. And so we turn around, we don't enter. And I think that our tradition recognizes that. Our tradition recognizes that sometimes remembering requires from us to go through a very painful hallway, a very painful process, to enter a very difficult place. So we prefer not to get close to that door at all. We stay somewhere else. And then the tradition says, no, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for you to remember. And more than that, it is a privilege. You're lucky that you can remember. And then, but we say, well, we're so much in pain. Such a painful thing. I want to give you an image or an idea of what that castle would look like for me. I shared that image once. I would enter that castle and I would see in one of the rooms there my mom playing cards with my grandmother. I would walk into a different room and I would see my mom sitting in the computer in the middle of the night. And maybe I would see myself laying down in the couch next to her, speaking with her until I would fall asleep. I would take a different path in that hallway. And I would see the Opa, Rabbi Harf, preaching in a Passover Seder. The castle is full of treasures. It's very difficult to enter that castle because every time that we face the door, that we face the access, try to see beyond the image of what has been reduced. And we really struggle to see ourselves and our world that way. And so, forgetfulness sometimes feels like a less painful option. But forgetfulness undermines the joy of memory. And therefore, in the most joyful times of the year, we try to take the motivation of the holiday to tell to ourselves we can open that door. We can enter that place of memory, that place of love. We can experience the privilege of remembering because we want to honor not only the lives of those that we have lost, but our lives, because our memories are interconnected. Our existence is interconnected. And we want to reclaim the possibility to fully live our lives. And when we don't have them in our hearts, we are not experiencing the whole world. And here's the piece about the world to come. I think that one of the most beautiful explanations about this idea of the world to come is the passing and the carrying of memory. We know for sure that moments in the lives of our beloved ones, they live in our memory. They're there. Therefore, every time that we decide to go through that door, even when challenged, we open for us and for them a glimpse of what the world to come looks like. A world that is filled with loving memories, with connection, and with the continuity of those souls with us. I want to invite you to go to your castle and to make it through the door. Recognize for a moment that your own wall might have been reduced. But the image that you are seeing, the image that is so scary, is not the reality of what it can be. And that once you enter through that door, you can revisit, you can reconnect with some of the most beautiful gifts that you have in the recons of your soul. We will take a moment for a musical meditation, and then we will invite you to go into his core. His core in our Sidurim, by the way, is on page 580, but don't go into the text yet. Take a moment. Don't go into the text. Try to imagine that castle and that door, and try to imagine rooms that hold loving memories for you. Open the doors and revisit. See those memories once again. Take them with you. So it's not about grief. It's about the joy of remembering. While listening to the music, I invite you to turn your Sidurim to page 580 and enter the silent section of his core. Please rise. Please rise. אל מלא רחמים, שוכם במרומים, עמסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, מקדשים בטהורים, כזוהר רקיע מזהירים, ונשמות יקירינו שהלכו לעולמם, מלאת הרחמים, יסתירם בסתר כנפיה לעולמים. יצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם. בני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו לשלום על משכבם. אמר אמן.
Amen.
Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved ones who have entered eternity, and clear and certain rest with you, in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Let Rachamin, source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace.
In the rising of the sun, we remember. In the blowing of the wind, we remember. In the opening of buds, we remember. We remember. In the blueness of the sky, we remember. In the rustling of the leaves, we remember. As the year starts and it ends, we remember. We remember. When we're weary and need strength, we remember. When we're lost and sick at heart, we remember. When we've joys we yearn to share, we remember. We remember. So long as we live, they too shall live. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. As we remember. We remember. We
We'll continue our service with Aleinu Leshaveach in silence on page 586. Aleinu Leshaveach לאדוני כל לתת גאולה. אמר יהיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Turn our Siurim now to page 598 for Kaddish. Belim, we invite you to share out loud the names of those that you are remembering. And of course, if you are connecting with us through Zoom, we invite you to share the names of those that you are remembering. The comment section, we are unfortunately unable to attend your comments in YouTube and Facebook, but we certainly check them out later on. Batya Batsara. Eden, do you have names that we can share from Zoom?
Yes. Fzi Kalish, Henry Kalish, Danny Silver, Sandra Wagner, Dede Ginter, Dennis Drunker, Julio Mendez, Victoria Paz, Ventura, Tom, Claudio, Mike, Maria, Harold Oslick.
We're on page 598. יתגדל ויתקדש שם רבה.
Amen.
יעלמה דברה חירותה וימליך מלכותה. חייכון ובימכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב באמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומן ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה
בריחו.
לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דא אמירם בעלמה באמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, לחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן. יעשה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן. May the memories of our beloved ones be always a blessing in our lives. יהיה זכרם ברוך. You may be seated. So, we are about to conclude our service. I want just to share a word about the holiday. What a beautiful holiday we celebrate at TVT. As we celebrate Chag Aviv, the holiday of spring, of rebirth, to see this sanctuary filled with people in person and in Zoom. In the second night, Seder was just terrific. It was such a nice feeling. Because it meant to some extent, and we need to do better in that area, but it meant to some extent that we have the best of all worlds. We had many of our people in person and many of our people in Zoom, and they all came together, and of course we have our staff doing a fantastic job. But the idea of feeling connected, feeling community, and feeling that some of the experiences that we have had over the last couple of years have taught us how to do certain things and how to value things that at times we took for granted. So with that sense of gratitude and somehow starting to conclude the holiday of Passover, Passover actually doesn't end. So Passover is the beginning. Spring, it's rebirth. While you are in Passover, we start counting the Omer. We are moving, we are walking along. The story of redemption doesn't end in Passover. It starts in Passover. The search for freedom takes so many years in the desert. So the things that you might be dealing with, the questions that you have, and I hope you have some questions. I hope we have asked ourselves, Manishtana, what's different or what should be different? I hope that we can carry those questions, and as we were speaking yesterday night, I hope we can reclaim in order to undertake this adventure of becoming free. We can reclaim our ability to play. In order to be free, we need to play. In order to be free, we need to ask questions. In order to be free, we need to be able to experience the world with amazement. So I hope that we all find this blessing of renewal in this Passover. And if you're not fully feeling that, do some more work. Keep pushing. Keep asking. And let's get started with our journeys. We'll conclude our service on page 625 with Adon Olam.
Adon Olam,
Hashem malach v'terem kol
Yetzir
nira le'nasa v'chefzo kol asai melech shemo nigra. Shabbat Shalom everyone. Adonai os לעמו ייתן, Adonai יברך את עמו בשלום. Shabbat Shalom everyone.